What the hell? They know this knows where we are. That's fucking weird. Anyway, hello. We are Underrated Movies under comic book discussions. We're here to talk about the trailers that dropped with, Shazam and Aquaman. Even though it's late, we're still gonna do it. So I'm here with my buddy Ruben, the comic guru.
Hello, Alton. Nice to be here. I'm glad to be on the podcast.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to be here on the discussion. Anyways, I don't know what you call this type of thing, but you guys get the gist.
Yeah. So we're here to talk about Shazam, Aquaman, and maybe perhaps Glass if it comes up, because you haven't seen any of the other Unbreakable.
I saw the cop scene, and I saw that he was in a mental institution, something like that, right?
Well, you mean the trailer, right?
Yeah, the trailer. Yeah, and so I saw it. I thought it was okay, but for me, I kind of like that more. I'm kind of like a calm guy. I guess it reflects my personality and stuff. I'm not egotistical. Don't get me wrong. I just
calm guy. Calm guy. What do you mean?
Like, I'm not really, hey, like an action hero. Like, I don't like too much fast pace. I'm kind of slow.
No, it's referring to the Unbreakable series.
Yeah.
It's more grounded superhero. It's a superhero film.
Yeah.
More on a realistic level.
Okay. Well, I guess that's what I didn't like so much about it, because I don't read comic books as much, but I'm still a comic book fan. I think there's still some great material with Marvel Comics. Marvel Comics is good enough to their superheroes should be good enough to take on the Justice League of America or any of DC's title books. They just don't get that attention. And they just try to put out as many gimmicks as they can so they can get more people to buy. And that's what makes it really bad. Makes Marvel Comics really bad. For example, Black Panther, one of the best Avengers, and a really good comic book hero, is weaker than Spider-Man. That doesn't make any sense. It should be the other way around, because he's part of the Avengers. The Avengers should be on par with the Justice League.
Wait a minute, so you're saying Black Panther is stronger than Spider-Man?
No, Spider-Man's stronger than Black Panther. And that's stupid. Black Panther should be able to whoop Spider-Man's ass. So,
wait a minute. You saying Spider-Man is stronger than Black Panther?
Yeah, in the comic books he is, unfortunately so.
So Spider-Man could whoop Black Panther's ass?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that doesn't make any sense. I hope you guys come to the same conclusion. And Black Panther, this is I know I'm going off on a tangent, guys. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you kind of confused me there because you made it seem like you said like Black Panther could whip Spider-Man's ass, and then you end up saying Spider-Man could.
No, in my opinion, Black Panther should be able to whoop Spider-Man's ass. He should be as strong as an elephant, fast as a gazelle, and have the best fighting techniques of all the greatest warriors in Wakanda. And that's granted him. His power should come from a mystical side that they're granted to him by the Panther God, and his villains cast should be like wizards and stuff. I'm kind of drawing a little bit from Aquaman in the comic books, but Black Panther's that good. I want him to live up to the African legends or some of the other heroes from African mythology. You know what I'm saying? So
Spider-Man can beat Black Panther.
Yeah, that shouldn't be other way around. Should be Black Panther could beat Spider-Man.
What? So you think because of his Wakanda technology that somehow he might be able to apprehend Spider-Man in a way?
No, like Black Panther just is a guy that runs around in a cat costume, but knows pretty decent martial artist.
Yeah, but you're saying Spider-Man could be Black Panther, though, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. In the comic books, that's what they say. They've had fights before, and Spider-Man won. Now, I'm a guy that I don't really like the scientism approach to it. I felt like the movie Black Panther relied too much on African stereotypes about what people perceive to be Africans to be, which was unrealistic. I thought, the Black Panther should have had some type of history, like an ancient civilizations. For example, I don't know if you guys know, but in Greek mythology, I'm spitting.
Yeah.
But the Greeks, they thought they remembered this old ancient race called the Minoans, and they kept them in their myths. For example, in this really ancient times when mortals had interactions with gods. So that's what I'm saying. And I took an African civilizations class, and it was the best class I ever took. I actually wanted to keep the book and maybe write something about Black Panther, about Wakanda, that actually has, cities, has an economy, has what else? A government, which it doesn't have. It's just a bunch of people in a tribe.
Why don't you? You could still do that. What's stopping you?
Yeah. If I ever took control of Marvel Comics, I'd have to redo everything. I wouldn't say get rid of everything. There's tons of Kirby-esque type of stuff that are fantastic that I could just rearrange it in a different way. So, like for Thor should be like what we're going to discuss about today, the movie Shazam. Mm-hmm. And we're going to stick to the comic book side versus a trailer. All right, you ready to go?
Yeah, you know more about the comics, about the whole thing than I do. I mean, I remember watching the trailers. I haven't watched the trailers right before we did this, but I kind of remember the trailers. So let's start with Shazam. Yeah. What do you think?
It was terrible. First of all, originally in the comic books, before they rebooted it, Shazam is an acronym. It stands for the powers that are granted to Billy Batson when he speaks this word. So he turns into a superhero named Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel has the wisdom of Solomon, the strength of Hercules, the courage of Achilles, the power of Zeus, the speed of Mercury, and what else? And that's it. And all these gods help him with his roles as a superhero. So they advise him on what to do. So they give him advice. This is what you're supposed to do, and he takes on mystical characters as well as superhuman ones, which makes it. That's why Captain Marvel is one of my favorite comic book heroes. He also has 3 cast members.
Wait, the male version or the female version?
The male version, the DC character version. He's one of the best written ones. His powers are just awesome and phenomenal. And from the trailer, did not live up to those expectations. To begin with, Captain Marvel can fly. And in the trailer, he tried to jump off a ramp. I think he got like around 15 feet up in the air.
So you're comparing Captain Marvel DC
to Shazam.
To Shazam.
Yeah.
I never heard that there was a Captain Marvel in DC.
Yeah, so he's one of those other known heroes that you don't really hear about, but if you're a comic book nerd, you'll know about. So Captain Marvel was originally written by Fawcett Comics, not Fawcett Comics. He lives in Fawcett City, but it was created by C.C. Beck, who at the time was working for another comic publishing company, and essentially he built it off as Superman. And this is where the rivalry between them actually comes into play. And what happened was that DC Comics, because Captain Marvel was so similar to Superman, they sued him and took him to court. And what happened is DC Comics won. But instead of, just running that company into the ground, destroying it altogether, and ruining, just getting rid of Captain Marvel or the power of Shazam from publication, they bought the character, the rights to the character. So he's now part of the DC...
Oh, shit.
What the hell? Oh, relax.
Yeah. Alright, just keep going.
It's just became part of the DC universe. So what happened is that they put a part of the DC universe, and they have actually this clash between Captain Marvel and Superman. Now, in the trailer, Captain Marvel's strength is really, 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 really underpowered. He's not as strong as he should be. He's got the strength of Hercules, and in the Greek myths, Hercules held up the world. So that means he's on par with Superman. But he has the advantage because his powers aren't, from the radiation of the sun, or they're not, based on science. They're magical. So he's actually stronger than Superman. He could beat him. But then again, you have to take into account that Superman has heat vision and that he has cold breath, ice breath, and those things. But essentially, And also with the character of Billy Batson. Billy Batson is a good kid. He's a good kid who's had a really hard time. His parents are, I forgot what their names are. I know his mother's name. It's Mary Batson, and Thomas. I think it's Thomas, but I'm not so sure. Mary Batson and William Batson. And what happened was that their archaeologists were looking at this tomb in Egypt, and they had a guy named Theo Adam. Now, Theo Adam is actually the alias for a descendant of Captain Marvel's main enemy throughout the comic books. This older warrior who was empowered by the wizard Shazam with the powers of the Egyptian gods. So he's a predecessor to Captain Marvel, but he became corrupted. So the wizard Shazam, entombed him into an amulet. And his descendant found that amulet, and that amulet took control of him, so he killed Captain Marvel's parents. And what happens, Billy becomes homeless. He goes to foster care, but he doesn't like it because they treat him badly, and he never goes back, so he becomes a homeless kid.
Do you think they're going to cover any of that in the live-action film?
They haven't covered that in the live-action film at all.
Just based on what you saw in the trailer?
They put him into foster care, but they should have covered that homeless aspect of it, because he was a kid who was homeless for a while. And then he got adopted by these other parents who eventually found out that he was Captain Marvel, and they had to deal with the daily realities of going to school.
So
daily life.
So it looks like, I guess they're going to keep mentioning that he was homeless, and then he was picked up by foster care, and then the family does pick him up, and then he ends up meeting that kid who's a paraplegic, right? Or
paraplegic.
Yeah, and then he kind of like steps in.
Freddie Freeman. His name's Freddie Freeman.
The paraplegic. Okay. So he kind of steps in, which I'm gonna assume they're gonna just mention he was homeless and everything. They're not gonna cover a lot of his backstory. It's gonna just be gonna be mentioned to you right out the blue.
Okay.
So I don't think they're gonna really show it based on what I'm just getting the vibe off the trailer, and then of course they're gonna insert the vibe of what's been going on with the other 4 DC movies, 4 or 5. How many are there?
There's probably like 4 or 5.
I think there's 5 of them. There's Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Suicide Squad, Justice League, and Wonder. Yeah, so there was 5. Yeah.
But talking about that, they're not going to include the Nolan trilogy of Batman.
No. That is its own thing. No way. That would not work. I know we discussed that, but it's not going to work.
It could work. I mean,
no, it's a different style and tone that they've worked with the Batman. Now, if they worked it around and kind of adapted that into that universe, could be, but just not the same. I mean, plus I like the Batman suit better in Batman vs Superman. Yeah. Even though I kind of do like the armored approach, it just looking back at Christopher Nolan's Batman, it looked like Batman was too skinny.
That is true. He's too skinny, and
he looks robotic in a way. I mean, it kind of
like an android.
Yeah, like an android, and you kind of saw that it looks like his mask is like squeezing his cheeks out, so it looks like he's about to just burp right before he's about to say something. Yeah. So, and I like the voice modulating that they did with Batman on that.
I think for that, just on an off topic, I know they're trying to expand the universe, but the Nolan verse was so good. I watched the Batman movies all the time, and I always enjoyed every single time I watched them. But I think it could have been abridged. To be honest, it could have been abridged, because Batman and Superman represent two different natures. Superman represents the light, and Batman represents the darkness, which you totally get in the Nolan universe, right? The dark aspects in there, and it was so good. I remember when I first saw the third and last, the Dark Knight Rises, the people that watched the scene where Bane took over Gotham, like their mouths just dropped. I remember looking behind me, and people had their mouths dropped and their eyes were just wide open. You know, it it was realistic. That was gold. That's gold right there.
They kind of nailed it a little bit with trying to be real. Well, no, I'll take that back. They try to go with the realistic, grittier approach with Batman vs Superman, but some of the fighting in it was was like dancing choreographed and wasn't all that realistic look.
It was to begin with. I don't think the Man of Steel was realistic at all. Like I said, Superman represents the light, and I'm just gonna go on a little rant, a hatred rant for like Lois Lane doesn't have blonde hair. She's not a dirty blonde. She has black hair. Raven hair.
That's too being picky. I mean, my issues with that was just they crammed so much in so little time that they had. Unnecessary. Like a lot of things that happened in the movie was unnecessary. So, and it looks like since with Shazam, they're changing the tone with this, just a completely different way. It feels like
a comedy.
It feels like a Yeah, it feels like a comedy. It feels like it feels like an Ant-Man movie. It feels like a Marvel movie, actually.
That's what they're trying to do, because they're trying to make as much money as they can, just like Marvel is, but they can't. So what they're doing is they're throwing all the character history. They're throwing basically the characters under the bus to make as much cast as they can.
Yeah, so they're recycling. They're kind of make everything lighter, might kind of make it feel like relatable to the Marvel movies, which I was digging the darker tone mentioned in the last discussion, and I feel like because the movie. Technically, Batman vs Superman was considered a box office disappointment because they were expecting it to make $1 billion, and the budget was like $250 million, and it only made $250 or around like $300 around there, and it made $850 million.
Yeah,
they consider it as a box office disappointment. They felt it could have been the darker tone of the film, which I can't agree with that. I think it just dealt with that you guys made somewhat of a bad film by cramming a lot of unnecessary material just for a Justice League movie.
Yeah, that's true. I 100% agree with that. It was too crammed. They showed Wonder Woman in there, and to me it was like, isn't this about Superman and Batman? What's Wonder Woman doing here?
She didn't need to be in there.
She didn't need to be in it. That's true, 100%. But what happened? This is what and there's so many discrepancies that should have been. Gotham is like literally right next to Metropolis. What the hell is that? Gotham is like in the New Jersey area, man.
That's funny.
And Metropolis is like in the D.C. area. So like in Washington D.C. It's not they're not right next to each other. They're not two cities right next to each other. But for Batman and Superman, it was a flop, and they're taking that same direction with their characters. Now, Shazam isn't a comedy at all. Then I beg to differ with the way they're trying to tackle Shazam. I think what they're trying to do is that they're going to introduce more cast members, more foster kids, and they're all going to get Shazam powers as well.
Does that happen in the comic book?
It happened in the new reboot. And that did happen. Billy Batson shares his powers with 6 other kids.
How did that turn out?
They all turned basically into copies of each other, but in different colors, like green, red, blue. I don't know.
That sounds kind of funny.
Yeah, I kind of liked it, but at the same time, I was disappointed because in the comic books, Billy does have a supporting cast. So he has a younger sister named Mary Batson that he didn't know he had until much later in the comic books, until she revealed him until he actually knew this information. And he has his friend Freddie Freeman, who is who's crippled because of a battle that Captain Marvel had with Captain Nazi. He knocked Captain Nazi so far into a lake that he hit a boat, got up again, and this boat was inhabited by Freddie Freeman, and his grandfather killed the grandfather and crippled Freddie Freeman. But Billy Batson then shared his magical powers with him, by calling down the thunder on him, and all he has to say now to get those powers is say Captain Marvel, and you'll get the strength of Hercules, the power of Zeus, the wisdom of Solomon, the courage of Achilles, the speed of Mercury, and the stamina of Atlas. I forgot that last one. And in the trailer, it seems to me that they're gonna introduce what's it called? It looks like they're gonna introduce maybe Captain Nazi in there, because I remember that bald guy.
Is that the villain? Yeah, I was gonna ask you, who's the villain? Because he looks like a Nazi, kind of like modern Nazi, kind of like scientist or something.
Yeah, that's what I said. In the reboot of the character, I've read a little bit, because I'm not a big fan of the DC reboot after the Flashpoint, and that's when I stopped reading comics. But essentially, Dr. Savannah, it looked kind of like the reboot, the New 52 version of Dr. Savannah, and that's Captain Marvel's arch nemesis.
Dr. Savannah, who's that?
Dr. Savannah is like what Lex Luthor is to Superman. And I like him. I really like the character. I thought it was awesome. He tries to beat Captain Marvel, or by using science. Not because of science, but it's just science fiction stuff that he comes up with giant robots, or he captures Captain Marvel's lightning in a bottle, things like that. That's pretty cool. That's a great character gold, and they could have gone in that direction, because he's also a business tycoon who hates Captain Marvel because Captain Marvel always spoils his plans for furthering his business, or what do you call it, or for ruining his plans. He hates them. But in the comic books, he's got like this cranium look. I don't know. He looks kind of deformed. He's got an overbite and a huge nose, like that. His teeth go out like that. He has 2 twin kids. Yeah, he's married to a business model, even though he's really, really ugly. I mean, this guy. He's a supermodel. But he has 2 good-looking kids, Magnificus, and I forgot his daughter's name. But then he has two twin kids that look exactly like him. One's named George, and I forgot the other one. But they look exactly like him, with an overbite, glasses, and just really ugly to look at.
Looking back at the trailer of Shazam, it seems like it looks like a very small budgeted kind of like film. So I'm kind of wondering where they're gonna go with this. I mean, they're going for a lighter tone. They're going for something that's a little more comedic.
Yeah.
Try to please everybody, and I still. Well, you know how I feel about the tone with dark tone and Batman vs Superman. You know I love that aspect of it, but I just feel like I feel like it's more. I feel like it's more crowd pleasing, and I think that, I mean, of course, that's where the money is.
Yeah.
How do you feel with DC going with this whole new direction with making, a like lighter tone DC films? I mean, just looking also at the trailer of Aquaman, which they just recently released a 5-minute trailer. It looks well, I don't know what to really respond to it about. It just looks like a adventure film. It reminds me of like those adventure Universal films back in the early 2000s that really glorified, big budget extravaganza visual effects. That I don't think a whole lot of the CGI, because it looks lighter. I don't think all the CGI looks all that well rendered, or just all that just great. It just seems, I don't know. It just seems more cartoonic in a way. It just took for me. It took it took me out of an emotional impact, because when I watched the trailer for Zack Snyder's other movies, I felt like the stakes were high because there was a darker tone. It felt more, much more of an epic story. But here it just feels more. I don't know. It just feels more. I mean, it's more lighthearted. It's more. It just feels something that's similar to Marvel Studios. It just seems so much of a what's the word I'm looking for? Something more. I guess more safety. It feels more safe than safer. Yeah. It feels more safe compared to other movies. And honestly, this is kind of contradictory with most of the Marvel movies. A lighter tone. I really, really enjoyed Infinity War because
Yeah.
it took a darker approach with making the stakes a whole lot higher, and I would really appreciate it if a lot of those characters did not come back.
Well,
They should have killed all the other characters that were been in the franchise for 10 years. But do you think? Where do you see? Where do you think the direction of where Aquaman's going to go on this? I mean, do you know a whole lot about based on what you saw in the trailer?
Yeah. So what they're trying to do is they're gonna have a war between and then the Atlantis is gonna launch a war on the surface world because of, I don't know the reasons why. Probably because of the pollution, all that stuff, stuff that's affecting the oceans and stuff. So they've declared world on the surface world. They've declared war on the surface world because of the pollution. I think it's going to become it's because of the pollution and all the stuff that it's affecting them. And what's going to happen? You're going to have Aquaman as a intermediate. He's going to be fighting on behalf of the surface world by becoming king of the sea and usurping the power of his half brother Orm. And I thought it was fantastic. I thought that was pretty good. I'd actually go watch and see it. I mean, that's a good movie that they got. I personally like Aquaman. Because of this thing is he's got super strength. He's the king of the seven seas, but he's not like your typical superhero who deals with supervillains that have super strength and all that stuff, but deals with the mystical side. So he goes up against sorcerers and all this other stuff, but he doesn't have any, magical powers. He can't conjure up spells. And, that's the thing. That's what I'm saying about Black Panther. Black Panther has to be like a king, but he should have been like a king, they have the, what is it, like in Britain, you have the king and queen, but they don't actually have a whole lot more power. They just have more influence on the people. That's what I thought T'Challa should have had. But nonetheless, he anoints, a prime minister of Wakanda. He safeguards it because he's a defender of Wakanda. He's a defender and champion of Wakanda, so he has to make sure everything's all going all right. And he should fight, mystical forces wizards, powerful wizards that threaten Wakanda. There's I'm going to destroy Wakanda. And what are you going to do about it? Well, you got the Black Panther, who's a mystical hero, whose powers come from a mystical side. Super strength, elephant super strength, the strength of an elephant, the speed of a gazelle, best fighting moves of the best warriors in his nation, and the stealth of a leopard, a panther. And he should have had that the Zulu warriors that they had that thing. What I don't know.
Wait, Zulu. Do you mean you're referring to Black Panther, right?
Yeah.
Is it the one where they were at odds, like the other tribals? They were at odds or something.
Like the warrior garb, though.
Yeah.
I think he should have had that to make it more African. Not just guy in a cat suit. But make it more African, so it's more relatable.
Well, they try to make it modernized, having had a little modern technology on it. You don't want to pay tribute to something that's more back to that time, because then it won't really feel right, I guess.
It could feel right. I mean,
they could have had something maybe represented a little bit. I guess the only thing that did represent was the little necklace that was going on,
but that wasn't really African at all. I beg to differ. I think
do you know much about African culture?
I took an African civilization class, but I liked it. Well, this is from the comic books, coming from the comic books, but there's this other DC comic book character named Buana Beast, and he's a white guy. He has a helmet on, but he has the loincloth or whatever you call it that some of the Zulu warriors had. And that's what Black Panther should have it as well. And, make a history from, Wakanda is this... It's almost like, these 12 tribes of Israel that, this one tribe that the Wakanda is descended from conquered these other neighboring tribes over this area and united it into one empire. And, the god... that ruled over Wakanda, the patron god of Wakanda, that tribe, gave them a stool or something. I'm going off of my African civilizations class. I forgot which civilization this was, but I remember clearly that this African emperor, received the golden stool. And that golden stool represented that his line will always be in power, as well as the ruling tribe that became an empire over all these other tribes. And that's where I'm drawing all my parallels from. And going back to Aquaman I think it's gonna be a good movie. I think so, because you got Black Manta in there, and that tension between surface world and Atlantis is gonna it's just the best. It's just a really good boiler plot.
I wish I could pull up the video of Aquaman. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm assuming the actor. There's a particular actor I think who's playing it. I think his name is Patrick Wilson. He's I think he's playing Mantis.
Yeah.
With the helmet.
Yeah.
Is the guy actually human look like or something?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
because watching back at the Super Friends, I remember watching Super Friends when I was a kid. I can't recall him ever taking that mask, that helmet off. Yeah. So is he like a human, or is it a sea creature, or is he?
No. He's human. Actually, he's a black guy in the comic books, but he's a really good villain. He just hasn't had that main spot. He doesn't have that special attention. He's really good supervillain. But he has this whole crew. It's almost like, not this terrorist thing, but he owns an entire crew of people who are of henchmen. And he's got, a submarines, and he's got backup plans upon backup plans, and he's a really good character. He's a good villain for Aquaman. He's Aquaman's main villain
In the whole comic book series, in his whole story arc.
In his whole story arc, like in the creation of the character, Black Manta is Aquaman's primary main villain. Of course, there's other villains like Orm, the guy that showed up on that mosasaur. Did you see it when he was attacking that lizard?
From the trailer.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember that part.
Okay, so his brother Orm is gonna be one of the.
His brother's a lizard.
No, his brother's not a lizard. He's riding a mosasaur. I remember specifically, but in the comic books, his name is Ocean Master. And he's a really good bad guy too. He's actually one of the guys who's actually in charge of the Legion of Doom, like the top guy, kind of like with Lex Luthor. And they tell everybody else what to do, is what I'm saying.
Oh, so like a organization bad guy. Yeah, kind of like.
Yeah, like a syndicate. I kind of want to say.
Yeah.
And he's a great character, and it's great that they have him in this movie. There's going to be tension because he's rightfully the heir to Atlantis. However, there's room. There's a succession to the throne. So they have Orm and Arthur Curry. Arthur is not entitled to the throne, but he has to dethrone his brother, because if he doesn't, he's gonna launch the war with the surface world, and then it's all this conflict that's gonna happen. People might die. What might happen is that you might get part of the world inundated in water, kind of like when back in the past, when the Earth was forming barely, you had parts of the U.S. that were underwater. That's what might happen.
Arthur Curry. Oh, okay. So that's Aquaman's name in the film. You really like the lighter tone that they go on with the movie? I mean, do you think they should have? I mean, I'm not. Okay, I guess I'm saying maybe DC movies should be darker, because I thought it would be interesting to make the stakes a little bit higher, but it just feels like a video game. Honestly, it reminds me of it feels like a video. Like it just. I don't know, man. I mean, I mean, honestly, I was not impressed by watching either of the trailers. I was not impressed. I was kind of just. It looks like it could be a fun movie. I mean, I just don't know. I mean, it just reminds me of Marvel. I mean, they're not gonna do anything new to really. I don't know, to make me interested.
Yeah, I totally can understand where you're coming from, but
I mean, it does look good. I mean, it's just, a guy who hasn't really accepted his responsibility at the throne of being a king, and then his brother comes in, wants to take it, and then he's persuaded.
He's already at the throne, but his brother's already at the throne.
Okay, so they're basically gonna get him to try to take his ass off the throne,
because he wants to launch a war against the surface world, so he has to come in as an intermediate for the surface world and dethrone him, even though he doesn't really have right to the throne. His older brother Orm does, but that's where it gets interesting. There's this tension between them. And I agree. I 100% agree. DC Comics is much more darker. Batman's much more darker. Not the superheroes, even Superman, he comes from like I said, he comes from that aspect of the light side. Kind of like, what lighter, where there's hope, there's light, as opposed to the darkness that Batman's in constantly. But even when he experiences that darkness, he gets, his thoughts and opinions on that darkness that he thinks he could change dissipate. They just evaporate, and he's forced to come to realization of how hard these things are. And going back to Shazam, it should be dark, I think.
Yeah, because aren't all or most of the DC comics have like a gritty kind of just tone to it compared to Marvel comics? I can't really recall any of. I could see that some of them might go dark in a way. Just if they, if the villain wins. But or
genuinely dark,
or the Punisher, excluding the Punisher. The Punisher is always going to be a dark material. And recently, I discovered the Marvel Noir, which I looked into some of that. I haven't looked at any of the comics. I want to look at some of the comics for Marvel Noir. It looks pretty good. It looks pretty good. I want to look into that.
DC Comics characters are just genuinely a little bit more darker. And it's always played towards their advantage. They're much more entertaining. They're much better than Marvel Comics, which is kind of like a gimmick. It's like this sunshine version. Like, hey, everything's going great. Let's go, giddy up. And I just don't agree with that. It has to have some type of darkness to it.
My brother was actually into the whole DC, I think, a little bit more than Marvel, because he was telling me I think DC has more interesting and grittier stories than Marvel, and I think Marvel plays it a little bit too safe. Because he was telling me a lot about Superman. I don't remember much of what he said. He was more a Batman fan, but he was telling me a whole lot of Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, and anybody that he could remember from the Justice League.
That's gold.
All of their stories. And he would show me all the cartoons, the animated series that pop up. He would tell me everything about it. And it sounded very interesting. I would hear more about that than Marvel. Because Marvel was just too... I don't know. I like Marvel. Marvel's cool, but it just, there wasn't anything riskier with their material. Except for the Punisher.
I think that's the problem with Stan Lee. He wanted it to make it more relatable to people, but you really can't relate. Nor are their characters very interesting. They're kind of boring and stale. So basically, he took out he doesn't write very good comic books. What he does is he writes.
You insulting the legendary Stan Lee?
I am insulting the legendary Stan Lee, and I could do a better. I bet if I bought the rights to Marvel and all their characters, I'd make a better Marvel universe. Trust me, make a better Marvel universe, much more interesting, with their character flaws and all that stuff. I could make even the Hulk work. In a way, kind of similar to DC, but still cool. They're darker characters. They got a more interesting cast of villains because they don't have very interesting villains. But it has to do with it basically, it looks like it's like living in La La Land. I know we have a place here in Stockton called Pixie Woods. It's like going to Pixie Woods.
Wait, Pixie? Oh,
yeah. It's like going to Pixie Woods for Marvel Comics, while as DC Comics has some grittier, nastier, better villains. They play them out so genuinely good that you just can't resist. You're like, all right. This is awesome. This is awesome material. Like, for example, Infinite Crisis, a 2006 mini-series comic book series was awesome.
What's that about?
Infinite Crisis is the reemergence of of the multiverse. So in the DC Comics, they used to have a multiverse that was destroyed by the Anti-Monitor. All these heroes from these parallel Earths, kind of like, parallel dimensions, coincided side by side. So you had on Earth 1, the Justice League, Earth 2, the Justice Society of America, Earth 3, or Earth S, the Captain Marvel family. And you had the original characters for the Watchmen 2 on another Earth. Blue Beetle, The Question, Captain Atom, and I think it was Nightshade. I'm not sure about that one. And that's it. And they, that's essentially what the author for Watchmen based his characters off of. Based off those characters.
You still haven't watched Watchmen?
I still haven't watched it.
Dude, what the hell is wrong with you?
I don't know. I've been in school, man. Like, school's been kicking my ass so bad right now. It's like back-to-back tests. Like,
no, I get it. I mean, you just haven't had time. But, I mean, the movie's been out for 10 years, mate. I mean, I gotta watch it. You gotta watch it. So maybe we could discuss about it, because I got the movie.
Yeah. And so what happened is this being called the Anti-Monitor comes into existence, right? And what he wants to do is grab and he wants to make his own universe, right? It's not a universe, it's actually a dimension, because a universe is everything within the universe, not like not a dimension. I'll get to a topic off later on about that, but my point is he absorbs all the powers of the Earth, and he becomes stronger, and he wants to make himself kind of like into a godlike being. He's actually much more powerful than even the gods are in the comics. And the superheroes, all of them, have to stop him, and they eventually succeed in doing that. And then what happens is that all those Earths are compiled into one Earth, where you have this entire history behind it all. So you have the Justice Society and the Justice League of America living side by side. The Justice Society is a precursor to the Justice League of America in the fact that they are based in the 1940s, and they take on their own unique set of characters. And then you have the Teen Titans in there, the Legion of Superheroes, Captain Atom, Blue Beetle, etc., so on and so forth. In fact, I think if you read it, you'll like it. Just look up online, read Infinite Crisis online for free, and you'll love it, dude. It's really good. It's dark. You'll just like it.
Speaking of the multiverse, I'm going back to thinking of the whole casting of Superman, Michael B. Jordan as Superman, which I got no problems with. I need to look into that to prove there was an African American superhero. What's with the whole multiverse with the different Earths? Like, what's going on there? What's the difference between each of the different Earths and the different heroes and the different stories that goes along with it? I remember my brother explained to me different. And this was years ago when we were kids, about the different kinds of Superman. There was a robot Superman, and there was a teen Superman who got a jacket? Superboy. There was another Superman who was kind of like a villain, but also kind of like a
Bizarro.
Yeah, well, not Bizarro. I remember Bizarro, but this one was like a bad guy or something. Besides Bizarro, I remember Bizarro. Wasn't there one that was on a bike?
On a bike.
Yeah, And I know there's the African American Superman.
There's Steel. But there's since they relaunched the multiverse, there is an African American Superman. It's called Sunshine Superman, and there's another one based off of Barack Obama. And I'm not a fan of Barack Obama, so I didn't like what they were going with it. I think they still had the right going with a black character, just not Barack Obama. No, I'm just saying. But yeah. There are a bunch of other Kryptonians. So, Kryptonians are kind of like human beings. There's different races and stuff. And they're not just a bunch of white characters. There's black Kryptonians, and white Kryptonians, and I think that's just about it. I don't know if there's any Asian Kryptonians at all.
They better make the diversity. I'm serious.
Yeah. But, so the difference between the heroes is that they live on their own Earths, right? But they're not aware that there are these other parallel Earths.
Mm-hmm.
And that could all, it's based on a frequency. So, like, the first meeting of those two Earths that I mentioned, Earth 1 and Earth 2, is when, what's it called? Is when the Flash reaches a vibrational pattern, and the two Flashes, there's two. The original Flash, Jay Garrick, and then there's Barry Allen. They breach the vibrational pattern that separates their two Earths, and they meet each other. And the Justice League also meets, what is it called? The Justice Society of America. There's parallel Earth that they live parallel to. And there's even an evil Justice League of America. It's called the Crime Syndicate. So you got the core characters of the Justice League. They're just evil. Johnny Quick. Not Johnny Quick. I think it's Johnny. Yes, Johnny Quick. There's Owlman, Ultraman, Superwoman, and Power Ring. And that's it. And they're, the counterparts of the Justice League of America. And so it's a really good comic book. What they did is
that reminds me of Watchmen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me. That's kind of like Watchmen. They would have, like, the government would have, like, these heroes kind of go out and save, and they would kind of monitor them. Yeah, that's like Watchmen. Yeah.
So that's what this other parallel called this other parallel Earth. There's this superhero comic. There's this superhero team called the Freedom Fighters. So they're they're soldiers, but they're owned by the government. But they act apart from the Justice League and the main Earth now. But they're military heroes. So it's actually interesting. It's almost like What If, So you have the Human Bomb, Phantom Lady, Dollman, Uncle Sam, the Ray, and Black Condor. Yeah.
That is cool, dude. I would like to look a lot of this shit up, but there's so much stuff out there.
You gotta look it up.
There's so much.
Infinite Crisis was good, dude.
Isn't there a DC animated movie on that?
No, I don't think so. But they have Flashpoint, but Flashpoint's garbage. It was garbage.
Wait, a Flashpoint, is that the one when they showed the Batman killing people? And
yeah,
I've seen that. That was actually kind of decent.
But from the comic book standpoint, it wasn't, because they rebooted everything. So they were trying to rewrite everything and condensed it into 5 years time. So it's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Come on now. You built everything so hard. What are you doing, But, DC has always had the upper hand against Marvel because it's so diverse. Now, Marvel's not very diverse. It's gimmicky, and it's like, La La Land. Asgard, if you know your Norse mythology, is pretty good. I would never make Loki the stepbrother to Thor. In fact, I would make it different and stick to the Norse material according to experts on Norse mythology like Jackson Crawford. But yeah, I would break that. Instead, if I were to ever write Thor endows Donald Blake with the power of Thor and the cane. So the cane, every time he taps it, he becomes an avatar. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like Captain Marvel. And he gets the invulnerability of a god. He's not susceptible to magic. It doesn't affect them. He's not, he's impervious to magical attacks. He knows how to fight because Thor is also a battle god as well. And he can call down thunder and lightning. He doesn't need a hammer to fly, but instead wields it in a very different way. He can fly without the hammer. He could swing it and recall it back.
Speaking of Captain Marvel, I'm referring to the female version. How powerful is she compared to fighting Thanos? Since she's going to appear in the... it's going to be called Avengers Annihilation, which I think it's not an impressive title, honestly. I mean, that just seems like a given. They probably couldn't figure out what the title. They should have said Infinity War Part 2. But anyway, how powerful is she compared to Thanos?
Well, she's not that powerful, so she's just like a regular. She's not even as strong as Wonder Woman at all. But I'm just comparing those two. Well, she's
so wait, Wonder Woman is stronger than Captain Marvel?
Yeah, Wonder Woman's a lot. Like there's a huge gap.
But doesn't she have like lasers? Like galactic lasers or something?
No, she can absorb energy and redirect it. So like even kinetic energy, she could redirect it and sock you or whatever. And she has an upwards limit of lifting, like couple hundred, like 25 tons. And Wonder Woman is as strong as the Earth is. And she could deflect bullets, and also to make her more human, she could be shot behind the head and she'll still die. So she's not invulnerable. She's just as strong as the Earth and all these other powers. I'll get to that later, but she's not that strong. In fact, this is like a social justice warrior agenda that they got in. Like that, the reason the Hulk didn't appear is to make emasculate men. That's why that's why they wanted to bring a really, 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 really strong female character, which it's just garbage, Captain Marvel doesn't really stand a chance against Thanos. Definitely does not stand a chance against Thanos.
So who would? Who do you think does stand a chance against Thanos? At least could somewhat
beat him. To begin with, like Thanos, the Infinity Gauntlet gives him the powers that are equal to like a Greek god in the DC universe. So we're getting an example of the power scaling here. It's not that great. He's not that powerful. Although I did enjoy Avengers Infinity War when he was beating up the Hulk. But in terms of power, he's not that powerful at all. What they should have done instead is well, they shouldn't have done that because it was good what they were going, but he's not that powerful. He's actually a very underpowered supervillain in the Marvel universe. A lot of supervillains in the Marvel universe.
So without that gauntlet, he's basically would have been a piece of shit.
Yeah, he wouldn't be able to do some of the stuff that you saw in the movie, but he'd be able to shoot out lasers out of his eyes because he's an Eternal. Super strength, but not teleportation. That's it. Yeah.
Well, they almost did beat him. I mean, they almost did beat him.
Yeah.
Was it for fucking Star-Lord,
Yeah, fucked it all up.
Yeah.
What a chump.
Yeah, they were pretty close.
I know, right?
It's like Star-Lord. It's like, what'd you do to my baby? You just gonna beat it. You gonna hit him in the head. Did you not see Mantis on top of his head trying to control him, and you hit him in the face, and it knocked her off? And it's like, dude, did you not see that? I'm sorry, your girlfriend died, but
there's bigger problems.
Yeah,
there's bigger problems, man.
Yeah.
He's gonna annihilate half the population of the unit. Of everybody in there,
I mean, and that's actually interesting that they did something like that because it shows you how stupid superheroes could be too. I mean, superheroes aren't perfect; they can make some dumbass decisions too.
Yeah, and Gamora and Star-Lord didn't even have that close of a relationship to be in love with each other.
Well, they were trying to figure things out.
Well, but still, it's not that even close. I mean, come on.
No, it was something flirty that was trying to establish something. So it was trying to. I would say they kind of developed into a close relationship. Yeah, so they were still trying to figure things out. Do they kiss in the other?
The comic books?
Well, in the movies.
I don't know. I haven't seen the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Wait, me like you haven't seen any of them?
I haven't seen any. I'm sorry, I'm a DC guy. I know Star-Lord's a knockoff of Adam Strange from the DC universe. Adam Strange is a really good comic book character too. It's awesome.
Honestly, it's not bad. Guardians of the Galaxy, actually, I like. I don't know which one.
Netflix online, dude, they're fucking awesome. You just gotta try it. They're free now,
Well, I know there's characters similar to DC and Marvel. I know. I remember saw a video that's comparing the two together.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've seen some stuff in comparison. Let's talk about Glass a little bit. Since you don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
The whole Glass thing. For those who don't know what Glass is, it's a upcoming superhero horror kind of like thriller that's going to be released in January, and it's a sequel to Split and Unbreakable. If you don't know what Unbreakable is, and I don't recall if I talked about this in the last video we did. It's called the East Trail 177 trilogy, where it's focused on superheroes but on more of a realistic level that could cross genres, which Unbreakable, Split, and then upcoming with Glass, where I guess the whole mythology of that is like what a superhero is real in the realistic form. But I think the movie kind of dates back to like the golden days of comic book, like the golden days of how the golden age of the architecture of comic books, like the heroes, like the opposite of the villain, and then the villain might not be like might have some sort of weakness, but may not necessarily have like powers, but can somehow outwit the superhero, and might have like a little other superhero that's like or a supervillain that's kind of opposite, or kind of similar like the superhero, but has his own characteristic traits. Like, I'm gonna call him the Unbreakable Man. I think that's a catchy name for him.
Sounds like Luke Cage because he has unbreakable skin.
Yeah, it does, but this guy, he's just strong. He can bend stuff, and he shoot. You can shoot him. You know, it won't hurt. But his weakness is water.
Yeah. Well, how's he gonna drink?
So he probably gets a little woozy when he drinks water. So he the first film, Unbreakable, guy survives a train accident. He's the only survivor without a scratch on him. Everybody's looking at him like, how the hell is this dude alive? Yeah, and so he goes around. I think he already knows what's going on because the movie kind of predicts that he's had these powers. He's known he has these powers for a long time, since he was like in his college years. He just hasn't bothered to try to make it public or just known, or he just thought he was just really different. So and I'm sure people could nitpick this, because I remember talking to this dude about it, and he was kind of nitpicking about it. He thought it was kind of interesting, but he felt like there was also things about it that was kind of like a little dumb. He was kind of nitpicking certain things about it. I don't remember much how that conversation went down, but the guy kind of knows he's has these powers. He's just hesitant about trying to figure out what to do with him, or how to use it, or feels like maybe he shouldn't use it at all, and just tries to adapt a normal life. But then when he's doing that, his marriage is falling apart. His kid's he's drifting away from his kid. He's technically not doing what he's supposed to be doing by using his abilities to do something about it. So he ends up meeting this guy, Elijah Price, who has some sort of disease that makes his bones very fragile to break. And there's scenes in there. I remember there's like 2 deleted scenes I saw where it actually shows him as a kid, and he ends up doing something, and he has an accident, and he will break his bones, and it was actually kind of sad. But he's kind of like a tragic villain, honestly, because I mean, he's this guy who's pretty much broken. He doesn't really have any hope, believing that there's somebody who could be the opposite of him that would understand his struggles of not doing what he was supposed to be doing. So he finds this man, Bruce Willis, who tells him that, dude, you are a superhero, dude. You got powers, and I think you could go places. So he attempts to go rescue people. And he ends up killing the bad guy. But it's kind of looked upon as it's a grittier superhero. So it's kind of looked upon as,
this comes with the job.
Well,
even see, that's the thing. DC Comics takes that into account. So the Flash had to kill his main principal rival, which is the Reverse Flash, which is like the Flash, but he's yellow, and the.
I remember seeing it from that Flashpoint movie. I think it was
the Reverse Flash. He kills him, and he has to deal with the consequences of killing another superhero. He's a superhero supposed to do the right thing, and that totally, I could see that going for that movie. However, now that you brought up how strong he is, I could see this guy. It reminds me of Eddie Hall.
Well, how strong? Well, he's not like super strong. He could pick up a car. He could bend poles. He could. He's not like super strong like Superman.
No.
Yeah, yeah.
But it just reminds me of Eddie Hall, because Eddie Hall was the guy who deadlifted 100 and I don't know how many pounds.
Who is Eddie Hall?
Eddie Hall is Britain's world's strongest man. He's a world's strongest man competitor. He doesn't compete anymore, but he was a guy who deadlifted over half a ton, a little bit over half a ton, 1,100 something pounds. So that's superhuman. That's a superhuman feat to accomplish. And I could see this guy becoming like a really, really good strongman, or setting world records because he's able to bend poles. I mean, how much can he actually lift if he has this super strength? It doesn't have to be comparable with Superman. And I think he could have had a normal life if he just stuck to it, because these are indie sports. Not many people know about them. So I want to compete in them as well. I'm getting stronger, even though I'm kind of fatter. But but I could totally see him going in that direction, having a normal life with his wife, and just being really, really strong and being blasted as a kind of like a superhero status, like a super celebrity. Sorry.
Yeah, like super celebrity.
Yeah.
With back to Unbreakable.
Yeah.
He ends up later on finding out that Elijah Price has been orchestrating these series of disasters to see if anybody will walk out of there alive, would survive it, and he's done it for a while.
Yeah.
So when he finally found Bruce Willis as that one who's basically the opposite of him, he comes to the realization that he's actually a super villain.
Yeah.
Seen it that way.
Yeah.
Or like his arch nemesis. So he ends up calling the police, and he goes to a mental institution. Then 16 years later, you get split about a guy with multiple personalities. He has 27 personalities. Reminds me of a villain from Yu Yu Hakusho, Sensui, the previous spirit detective. You don't know what Yu Yu Hakusho is?
Oh, I do know.
Oh, you do know? Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, good. Like, you remember the previous spirit detective who?
It was a girl, right?
Huh?
It was a girl, right?
No, it was a guy.
It was a guy.
Yeah. He ends up becoming a bad guy later on, and then he wants to bring the demons into the human world, because he just got fed up watching that. He got fed up with humanity after watching that video called Chapter Black.
Yeah.
How humans were being very cruel to the demons.
Yeah.
He ends up developing I don't know how many personalities. I think it's 13 to 17 personalities.
Oh, okay.
So one of them is a woman.
Yeah.
So I wonder if
that's a woman.
Yeah.
I thought it was. I thought it went. I thought it went really overboard when in the beginning of the first episode, when we see Yusuke's mom with some trannies. You remember that?
Oh yeah, in the uncut version. Yeah.
Whoa! It was just like, whoa, that's going a really, really long step.
Honestly, I wasn't even aware of they would incorporate that in the kids anime, but they would just make it seem like it was just clowns or something. Yeah.
But it went a lot further. I kind of like Yu Yu Hakusho. Now that we're talking about it, I thought it was, if they didn't have to do the mystical stuff, it would have been pretty good. If they dealt with these high school kids who go to school and stuff, and they had to deal with real world problems, that'd have been pretty good. But
that would have been a cliche drama that we've seen in other animes before. So no, I disagree with you.
Oh, it's pretty good. I mean, even the red haired kid, what's his face?
Kurama.
No, that's the fox.
Yeah, that's the red. You mean Kurabara? I mean orange.
Yeah.
Is orange.
Yeah. His hair's orange, but I like the fact that he had to deal with a teacher that was giving him a hard time. He's like, I'm gonna flunk you if you don't pass this class. No.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, not flunk you. I'm gonna get rid of your friend's job if you don't do this right.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty good, man.
They're bringing it back.
They are? Are they
well, no, it's like an OVA. They're bringing 2 OVAs. Supposedly, one of the episodes is going to deal with a story of how Kurama, and this was based off of manga. I think I remember reading the manga from Shonen Jump. They're going to show an episode of how Kurama and Hiei first met, and then a story that kind of goes along with it. I remember reading some parts of the manga of that, and I think the next story, I think it's just going to revolve around. I think there might be 3 actually. I think the one other one might be about them doing the Demon War tournament again to see if Yusuke could win. And rule the tournament, rule the Demon War for 4 years.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the other one. I think the other one might have been about here. I think the other one might be just another spirit detective journey.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I would personally like to see Yusuke's married life. How he's adapted to that. That would be
honestly, I would like to watch that too.
Yeah, that would be pretty good if they just went into detail with that. And like getting back to the topic of Glass. I kind of didn't like the superhero too much because the
superhero, like Unbreakable Man.
Yeah, not the Unbreakable. Yeah, the superhero element too much because I think that was overplayed too much in the trailer.
Overplayed like how? What do you mean?
Like it just felt too much like kind of like a Marvel comic book.
I don't really see it that way. I don't think so. I think they're playing out kind of just I feel like they're playing it out where they're stripping down a lot of the superhero elements out of it and just giving you the mythology of superheroes. So it's more grounded. It's not like they have a defined costume or anything. I mean, really, the costume for Unbreakable is just him wearing a trench coat, like a hoodie trench coat. I mean, they don't. It's like they have their own cinematic universe here, but it supposedly, I guess the word is that the director had already intended for this character to exist with Kevin Crandall Crown, the dude with the 27 personalities with that beast, where I guess he was always going to be intended to be a part of that film, and there was going to be more of it. But it's I think it's the idea what they're going for is people believing that there are superheroes with people actually, like, what if superheroes were actually real, but they were dealing with real issues with family drama, trauma, other real life related situations, and what if you are, but nobody really believes you, but you're being brought in this mental asylum to really test that ability if you do have abilities. And the guy, Elijah Price, who's always been inspired by comic books, always got that impression, what if I'm in such a condition where I'm basically just limbless and not as strong, what if there is somebody like an opposite, just like where people will look in relationships, like what is it, your opposite? Maybe your opposite could help feed the need that you don't have, or something that could help you, or something. And I think that's kind of what they were going for. It's the same thing when you're comparing to a villain and a hero. What's the comparison? What's what's the most relatable comparison from hero villain who are kind of like the same but also the opposites, like Spider-Man and Venom, right? I mean that would be kind of like that's like that is Spider-Man's arch nemesis, is Venom. Dualism. That's what they're kind of going for with dualism. Now and I believe that's the focus with David Dunn, Unbreakable Man, and then Elijah Price, Mr. Glass. I think just the Horde, Kevin, I think he's just another being. I think he's just pretty much of a henchman, because in the trailer they kind of give it to the point where he's kind of recruiting him as a henchman, convincing you are a special person that I need you to break us out of here and show the world that there are people with special abilities like superheroes exist. So we don't have to just read the comic books anymore. There are people out there who are like us. And I think the goal of the film is that since Elijah's really believed in that philosophy, his goal is to really set an example of showing, it could happen by forcing by giving the motivation of David Dunn to go after the Horde and stop him. It's like David, a lot of people are going to die if you do not stop the Horde from committing these acts.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it? Are you going to sit there and let these people die, or are you going to show the world of what you can do and who you are? So he's kind of putting that test on them.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting aspect of it. I think that totally goes with the superhero motive. But personally, I wasn't a big fan of the trailer, but it is an interesting aspect of it. Like I said before, if this guy was putting him through the test, I think in a real world situation, because this guy's a freak,
the guy is crazy. The guy committed 3 acts of terrorism to try to prove, somebody could walk out of it.
Whoa, that guy
alive.
Well, this guy's crazy. But the guy that he's targeting, I don't know, because I do powerlifting, and I'm into the strongman same. And a little bit of bodybuilding, not too much. It's kind of boring. Mm-hmm. But I could see this guy being a really good powerlifter, or because you do have freaks. You do have freaks in the strength world, okay? So one example would be a guy named by the name of Larry Wheels. He's unimaginably strong. It's ridiculous. This guy has a 425-pound overhead press.
What?
Yeah, 425 pounds. He's a freak. He's ridiculously strong, and he's only 23 years old. That's really strong. How much stronger is he gonna get the more he goes? Because he hasn't even plateaued. He just gets stronger and stronger. He has a 904-pound deadlift. That's almost half a ton. At 275, that's ridiculously strong, man. And then he has almost a 700-pound bench press. That's a freak. Sounds like this guy that we're talking about that could bend bars, and
that could be unbreakable, man. I mean, he could go out and save people,
what does he really do? And the question comes up with, what do you really do? But I like where it's going off with this. How do you deal with a situation like that? You're incredibly strong. You got these superhero-like powers. But what do? You're not doing your own thing, but you're living a normal life just like everybody else. You're looking for happiness.
But it's not fulfilling. But maybe stepping out and actually going out and saving people might be. What do? Do you just resist the urge to do it, or do you go out and just try it? Do you go out and just go out there and save people and try to be a superhero? Because there are people out there who dress up in costumes and pretend to be, thinking that they are superheroes and go out and try to fight crime.
Yeah.
So what do? Do you feel like you can ignore the urge to go out and do it, or do you just take the chance and just go out there and try to save someone?
I think he should have taken the chance because he's so strong and he's being targeted by this supervillain, right?
Yeah. He's kind of once he finds out that there's another person who has this ability, he puts both of those two to the test.
So yeah, I think he should do it because who else is gonna stop this guy? This guy's just gonna make more trouble the way he goes, and he's now his arch rival. He just doesn't know it. They haven't confronted each other yet.
Which I have a feeling how the film's gonna end, and I think it's either David Dunn might die.
Yeah.
The hero. Or I have a feeling the villains they're gonna break out of prison and then they're gonna be running loose. And I think whatever the twist is going to be, because this filmmaker M. Night Shyamalan, he's known for putting out plot twists towards the end of his films.
Yeah.
I have a feeling whatever that twist may be, it might relate to a specific character from the previous film, Split.
Yeah.
Her name is in the character film, her name is Casey Cook. I feel like her role is probably going to be a little bit more prominent.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling David Dunn will lose his fight against the Beast.
Right.
and those two will run amok around the city. And I don't think there's going to be a sequel after this. I don't think there should be. I don't think they need a. I think because this is a franchise based on ideas, not like a continuation of a story. If it's just a franchise just with ideas, it doesn't need really a satisfying conclusion to conclude the arc completely, or to tie up loose ends, really, because you really don't, because it's just ideas for it. I mean, this is kind of the same thing. This is off topic to the Sicario films that they're going to do with the first film, and then they did a second film which was good, but it wasn't better than the first one. And what their intent with the next film, if they ever decide to do it, is that basically, from how I'm seeing it with it, Sicario is like an action film dealing with the cartels. Like the first film, it's its own standalone, and it seems like the second one is like a retelling of the first film, but cut in half. And I'm assuming the third film, and they're gonna bring a specific character from the first film back in, if they decide to do that, to conclude the other half of the first film. So it looks like they're spreading. So it looks like the two upcoming sequel is basically retellings of the first film, but just expanded.
Right.
So I think they're just ideas. They're just testing ideas. So this is what I think what the Unbreakable film franchise is. They're just ideas. And if we would have had this franchise completed long ago, it's just the first film, Unbreakable, wasn't a box office hit because people didn't know how to respond to a film that was a superhero film, but it was a drama that was it was a superhero film that was disguised as a mystery thrill. Yeah. So. It was kind of ahead of its time, and which I think it was, because people didn't know what it was and how to respond to it. But it was like, when the first crawls comes up about talking about comic books, and the more you watch it, it's like, this is a damn superhero film. What the hell? It's like I didn't expect that. This is a superhero film, so he's a freaking superhero.
He just doesn't have a name or a costume, but yeah, that's pretty. I think that's something that's pretty interesting. I think they're going in the right direction with that, but it's not like your typical superhero. I like the typical superhero. I'm sorry, I'm a big fan of the Golden Age stuff.
I had a feeling.
Yeah. I guess I don't know what gave it away.
Oh, dude, no, because you're enthusiastic about it. You don't seem to be the kind of guy who'll like testing the genres of superheroes a bit. Like you don't seem like Watchmen kind of tests that a bit too. So I would recommend checking it out, and I actually plan on doing a video review on it. So once you watch it, maybe I could redo another video discussing your opinions on it as well. But I need you to watch that movie. So I don't know. Do you have Blu-ray?
I don't have Blu-ray, but I'll look it up online.
Just probably watch it online, because I really like it. I didn't like it at first because it was different as a superhero film, but then it just grew on me over the years, and I read the comics of it, and I was like, no, I think I fucking love this movie now. And I watched the Ultimate Cut, and the Ultimate Cut really, it was basically like the whole comic, but they did add some changes there, which made more sense. What they did, because there was a scene in the film where an energy bomb blows up New York, but in the comic book it was a giant. It was a giant. It was like, how wait a minute, how did that happen?
Well, Ozymandias, that's his name. He took it from I forgot which historical figure he took it
Greek
from.
god or something, right?
Yeah, like a Greek. He created this super giant monster that would unite, that would end the Cold War and force Russia and the United States to fight, to band together to fight it. And that was what the main gist was. Not the main gist. The main gist was with the hero Rorschach, like Rorschach. Yeah. What do you do? Like, do you save them or do you not save them? And basically, he said they're not worth saving because they've outlawed superheroes. So it was realistic. I thought it was pretty good.
Honestly, I'll probably be on Rorschach's side. It's like, they don't give a crap about us anymore. They exiled us. So why should I give a? You know what? Why? I'll probably be like Unbreakable Man. Kind of secretly saving people, but
getting stuck up in a mental hospital.
Yeah, that's if they don't just start doing tests on you and see what if
what you're made of.
Yeah.
You're like, why are you so this strong? But that's the whole take on it. It's like are they worth saving anymore, or are they not, or do you just leave them to their own devices? That was an interesting question to ask. Personally, me, is like, you save them. You don't want innocent people to die.
Well, I think the goal is to let them die to make people realize it for themselves. Are they worth saving? Because because Ozymandias killed people. He had them die. And it's like after a crisis like this, do you need us anymore? And the movie doesn't particularly answers that. I mean, it just kind of leads up like, do these people really care for superheroes? And really, I think from my interpretation, not really. I mean, because people are always going to have a opinion, a backlash on superheroes in a way that it's going to shun them. It's like they don't want hope or anything. It's like they excluded hope because there's no hope to give around too. So if you try to go out and rebel and try to give hope around, you're kind of fighting against the whole world that has its own. I guess it's like just evilness or something. I don't know. I feel like I'm not making so much sense, but it feels like the answer of it is not really saving the people, or it's like let society learn to save itself. And kind of exclude superheroes.
So they started excluding superheroes. I remember like Dr. Manhattan's wife. Her father is a comedian, but he raped her mother.
No.
In the comic books, he did. He was a rapist.
Dr. Manhattan's mother?
No, not Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, Dr.
Manhattan's wife. Dr. Manhattan's wife is the daughter of the comedian.
Her. Oh, okay. I was like, Jupiter's like. Oh, okay. I was like, wait a minute. What? Oh.
And her mother used to belong to a super team too. Just these ordinary people that just banded together. So what happened is that the 40s come in, then the 70s, they started outlawing people, and Dr. Manhattan starts to get involved in the international politics. He's sent to Vietnam and he kills, so many of the Viet Cong.
I love that freaking montage scene in the film. Dude, you gotta go watch that damn movie, man. You gotta go watch it. I would tell you go buy it in Barnes and Nobles, but I know you don't want to fork over $20.
No, I don't want to fork over. I'd rather go eat something right now. But they ain't wrong.
Honestly, I think that kind of concludes really today's comic book discussion here. So we both have our opinions on Shazam and Aquaman.
What did you think about Shazam? I mean, I want to hear your side of it.
I never put my side on it.
No, I don't think.
Not on either of them.
No, you said it was like.
Well, with Shazam, when I saw the trailer, I was kind of taken back on it. I was wondering what was the budget on it, because I don't know much with Shazam. I was trying to introduce a little bit about it with my brother. And I did see that DC animated short where he was fighting Black Adam.
Yeah.
And I heard The Rock might play Black Adam.
Oh, he doesn't fit the personality.
No.
Type. He does. The build.
I heard that there was like a fake Photoshop of him as Black Adam. I don't know if the photo's real or not, but they kind of.
It's not real.
Yeah, I don't think so. They just edited it to make it look like if he could look the part.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. You want to end it now?
Yeah, I'll just end it. Yeah, I'll just end it now.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So, what do you want to say? Keep on.
I think it's kind of. I don't know, man. I think it's kind of too comedic. I don't like the direction where DC is going with this. So it could have. I wish they kept the dark tone, but I see why they're changing it. So that's my opinion on it. I think they could. I wish they stuck to the dark tone of this. Yeah. So yeah, I think we're going to conclude today a comic book discussion. Here, Alton Henry and
Ruben Casado. Catch you guys later.
Yeah, catch you guys next time.
All right.
All right, man. Thank you.
Doing good, man.